We now enter into our second week of the Advent journey. Last week we lit a candle of hope on the Advent wreath. This week we light a candle for peace. Not peace and quiet, as much as I might appreciate peace and quiet, but in the Advent season we light a candle for peace that comes with justice. Those of us who take the birth of the Prince of Peace seriously discover that being peacekeepers is never enough. We are called to be peacemakers, which means that sometimes we have to disrupt an unjust peace to work for a peace that is truly for all the world. There's so many times and ways in which we try to sanitize the Christmas story. As you know, we have nativity scenes all over our house at home. When we moved, we got rid of some of them. We used to have 87, now there's maybe 50. I don't know what there are around the house. But one of the things that I noticed is there are certain tendencies in those nativity scenes. And one, Mary, for instance, is almost never young enough or dirt poor enough. 40 years ago, in my inner city ministry in Philadelphia, I was doing youth work with kids of all different ages, and one girl that I can remember, LaTonya. LaTonya was 14 years old, living in a government-subsidized housing project. She had a hard life. No dad, a mom with no job, her brother on drugs running around with the wrong gang. At 14, she was ready to drop out of school and start a family of her own, continuing that cycle of poverty. LaTonya was disruptive and obstinate, and she was Mary in our Christmas play. And that year, during that play, Mary was for me never more real, more beautiful, more determined, more passionate. It makes me think of our children's program that's happening today. How will they find themselves in the story, the characters, the promise? And how will we? A few weeks ago, Seth and I attended a racial justice summit here in Kansas City. One workshop that I attended focused on the economic disparities today. And I remember being particularly fascinated by the story of Johnny Tillman. I had never heard her story before. She was a civil rights activist back in the 60s who continually lifted the stories of those who were poor and economically disadvantaged. Johnny and her movement had enough clout to request a meeting with Martin Luther King Jr., where she emphatically told him to be sure that his leadership team consistently included poor people and their voices. She emphasized that this would ensure that the movement focused on the needs of the oppressed and not become distracted by leaders more interested in personal gain. What Johnny emphasizes is the question about who controls the narrative, who controls the story, who controls the mission. And I see her strategy at work in the early gospel writers. The question, who controls the story? In Luke, it's not Zechariah, the high priest, but his wife Elizabeth and young Mary. Like Zechariah, Joseph takes a back seat in Luke's gospel to the women. Then following the birth, Luke's good news is shared not with kings and queens, nor priests and billionaires, but with lowly shepherds. Again, who controls the story? In Matthew's story, it's not the Jewish King Herod, but foreigners who travel from afar who get to control the story. And the main scene is not in the powerful city of Jerusalem where the temple resides, but in the small city of Bethlehem. And the good news is shunned by the military might of Israel, and the Holy Family must flee to find safety in, of all places, Egypt. Who controls the story? Chuck Queen, a progressive Baptist minister, has his own children's Christmas play story. Barry, a 10-year-old terror, as he describes him. A kid who was a struggle in every Christmas play they put on. A couple of years ago when he was younger, he was an angel and he wasn't paying attention and his wings caught on fire. After that, he was King Herod, a very simple role to play, and yet he literally pulled the carpet out from underneath the three wise men and their treasures went flying everywhere. Many thought it best maybe just to leave Barry out of the next play. But the director gave him a simple role, the innkeeper. All Barry had to do was open and close the door while offering one simple line. What damage could he possibly do? Barry made it through all the rehearsals and the dress rehearsal perfectly. Then the big night arrived when all the mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers, friends and loved ones gathered to relive the Christmas story with their children. Barry was given a chance to redeem himself from all his previous mishaps. He opened the door of the inn and he looked straight into the face of Mary and Joseph. Mary, very sad and pale, sat on a little donkey, which they never used during practice. The scene looked so real, and on that special night, when all the props were in place, and with Mary playing her part so well, you could almost hear the wind whistling around the cold stone walls of the inn, and blowing the thin cloak of the pregnant Mary. When it was Mary's time to speak, he spoke out loudly and clearly. His timing and emphasis were impeccable. "Be gone! I have no room for the likes of you." Then Barry watched Mary and Joseph turn sadly away into the cold night. Those on the front row later said that they saw tears well up in Barry's eyes and his lips start to tremble. "Wait!" cried Barry. It came like a thunderclap. Every heart in the room stopped. This wasn't in the script of the familiar Christmas story. And then Barry finished it. "Wait, you can have my room!" And all bedlam broke loose. Barry had done it again. He had ruined another Christmas play. But then maybe not. The director got up and quieted the crowd, and she said, "Maybe, just maybe, Barry has given us the greatest message of all. He could not turn away the Christ child even in a play." What about us? Will we shut Jesus out? Will we turn away from a world in need, from the cries of creation, for mending and healing, from our brothers and sisters who are lonely, oppressed, wounded, and lost? When we turn away from them, we turn away from Christ. Perhaps this season, we are the shunned and unwanted, like Barry and LaTonya, invited to find our place and our voice. Or perhaps this season we might recognize and confess that we are the silencers and the oppressors, the ones who need to step aside and to make space for others and amplify their voices. Perhaps this ancient story, sung about by Mary, is happening once again, where the world is turned upside down. I invite us into a time of prayer.